800 miles from the North Pole. No roads, no people, just ice, as far as you can see in every direction. But 115 feet beneath the surface of that ice, right now, buried and forgotten, is an entire city. A fully functioning nuclear-powered military base with dormitories, a hospital, a chapel, a movie theater. The U.S. Army built it in secret, powered it with a nuclear reactor, housed 200 men inside a glacier, and when they were done with it, they just left. They left the tunnels, they left the buildings, they left 53,000 gallons of diesel fuel, unknown quantities of radioactive waste, and enough contamination to cover 136 acres of Arctic ice. Their plan? The glacier would bury it forever. They were wrong. This is the story of Camp Century. The most audacious, most secret, and ultimately most reckless construction project the United States military ever attempted. A base built not just in the Arctic, but inside the Arctic, tunneled directly into the Greenland ice sheet, hidden from the world, hidden even from Denmark, the country it was built on. And behind the cover story, a plan so ambitious it seems almost fictional. A tunnel network 3 times the size of Denmark, 600 nuclear missiles hidden beneath the ice, aimed at the Soviet Union, ready to fire at a moment's notice. They called it Project Iceworm, but the ice had other plans. June 1959. The Army Corps of Engineers arrives in northwest Greenland with 6,000 tons of supplies and one of the most unusual construction briefs in history. Build a city, underground, inside a glacier, and don't tell anyone why. The first problem was just getting there. The nearest air base, Thule, was 138 miles away. To move equipment across the ice, they used giant bobsleds, moving 2 miles per hour. The trip from Thule took 70 hours each way. The digging was done by Swiss-built rotary snow mills called Peter plows, machines that could chew through 1,200 cubic yards of snow per hour. They carved long, deep trenches into the glacier. Then engineers placed steel arch covers over the top, packed snow back on, and sealed it from the surface. From above, once the snow covered it, you couldn't see it at all. The longest trench, called Main Street, was 1,100 feet long, 26 feet wide, 28 feet high. Inside it, and in 20 other tunnels running off it, the Army built a complete underground world. Dormitories, a hospital, a church, a barbershop, a hobby shop, a movie theater, a gym. At its peak, 200 men lived and worked under the ice for months at a time. One soldier, later a professor at Yale, recalled the base as warm, dry, and surprisingly comfortable. He also said he had no idea what it was really for. In October 1960, a team of engineers made final preparations to bring a nuclear reactor to life. 115 feet below the surface, surrounded by glacial ice. The PM-2A, a portable military reactor, transported 138 miles across the ice sheet, was the world's first portable nuclear power plant deployed by the U.S. Army. It powered the entire base. Heat, light, everything. The Army even made a documentary about it, sent it to magazines. National Geographic ran a feature. The Saturday Evening Post covered it with pride. In 1960, deep inside the Pentagon, the U.S. Army completed a report with a title that told you everything. Strategic Value of the Greenland Ice Cap. The plan, codenamed Project Iceworm, was staggering in scale. Using Camp Century as the prototype, the Army would expand the tunnel network to 4,000 kilometers, an area 3 times the size of Denmark, hidden entirely under the ice sheet. Inside that network, 600 nuclear missiles, each one a modified Minuteman ICBM, redesigned to function in extreme Arctic cold. Positioned 4 miles apart along the tunnels, with a range of 3,300 miles. Capable of hitting most of the Soviet Union, the missiles would be mobile, moved along internal rail tracks so the Soviets could never target a fixed position. Hidden, dispersed, virtually impossible to destroy in a first strike. The Army's own report described it as a force that is hidden and elusive, and invulnerable to all but massive attacks. There was just one problem, a significant one. Denmark had no idea any of this was happening on their territory. Greenland was, and still is, a Danish territory. When the US approached the Danish Prime Minister about Camp Century, they described it as a research station. When they hinted at larger plans, he gave a deliberately vague non-answer. The US Army interpreted that silence as a green light, so they built it anyway. 600 nuclear missiles on Danish soil. No permission, no disclosure, just tunneling. This wouldn't become public knowledge until 1996, when classified documents were finally declassified, more than 3 decades after the project was abandoned. Denmark was not pleased. The ice sheet looks solid, permanent, immovable. It is none of those things. Glacial ice is viscoelastic. It flows, slowly, but constantly, spreading outward from its own weight, compressing anything in its path with forces exceeding 1,000 pounds per square inch in some areas. The Army engineers knew this. They accounted for it. They believed they had the calculations right. They did not. Within 3 years of construction, the tunnels were already deforming faster than predicted. The steel arch walls were bowing inward. The ceilings were dropping. By mid-1962, just 2 years into operation, the ceiling of the reactor room had sunk so far, it had to be physically lifted back up by 5 feet. Crews worked constantly just to maintain the tunnels, trimming ice from the walls and ceilings to keep them passable. Not expanding, not building, just surviving. In 1963, the Army's own engineers concluded what the glaciologists had been quietly warning. The ice sheet would destroy the entire network within 2 to 5 years. The 4,000-kilometer missile grid would collapse before a single missile could ever be loaded. Project Iceworm was officially canceled in 1963. Camp Century limped on for 3 more years, running on backup diesel power after the reactor was removed in 1964. In 1967, the last personnel left. They took the reactor. They took most of the equipment they could carry. Everything else, they left. 53,000 gallons of diesel fuel. 63,000 gallons of sewage and wastewater. Unknown quantities of PCBs, toxic industrial chemicals used in building materials at the time, and an unknown volume of low-level radioactive coolant from the nuclear generator. The reasoning? The Greenland ice sheet had accumulated for millennia. Snowfall was constant. The waste would be buried deeper and deeper every year. In a few decades, it would be entombed forever, under hundreds of feet of ice. The Cold War was over. The problem was solved. For decades, Camp Century sat undisturbed, exactly as promised. Each winter, 4 feet of new snow accumulated on top of it. The base sank deeper and deeper into the glacier. By the 2010s, it was 35 meters, 115 feet under the surface. Invisible, inaccessible, forgotten by almost everyone. Then in 2016, a team of climate scientists published a paper in Geophysical Research Letters. They had been running climate models, projecting what the Greenland ice sheet would look like as global temperatures rose. And in those models, something unexpected appeared. The portion of the ice sheet covering Camp Century, the region that was supposed to keep accumulating snow forever, was projected to begin melting as early as 2090 under current warming trends. When it melts, the waste comes with it. The diesel, the PCBs, the radioactive coolant, into the Arctic Ocean, into the ecosystem, into the food chain. And here's where it gets genuinely complicated. Who is responsible for cleaning it up? The United States built it, but they built it on Danish territory, without permission, using a cover story. Denmark considers it an American problem. America argues that climate change is a global issue, and cleanup responsibility is unclear under the original 1951 Defense Agreement. Nobody has started cleaning it up, nobody has a plan, and every year, the ice gets a little thinner. Then in April 2024, a NASA research aircraft was flying a routine radar mapping mission over the Greenland ice sheet. The system, called UAVSAR, a synthetic aperture radar that maps beneath the surface, was calibrating its instruments when the data suddenly showed something unexpected. Parallel structures, underground, perfectly geometric, in a place where there should be nothing but ice. The lead scientist, NASA's Chad Green, later described the moment. They didn't know what it was at first. Then someone cross-referenced the coordinates. It was Camp Century. Still there. Individual tunnels visible for the first time in nearly 60 years. Nobody had planned to find it. Nobody had been looking. A 2024 radar instrument, technology that didn't exist in 1967, had accidentally rediscovered one of the Cold War's most buried secrets. Camp Century was never supposed to be a cautionary tale. It was supposed to be a military masterstroke, the ultimate second strike weapon, hidden from the enemy, hidden from allies, hidden even from the men who lived inside it. But it revealed something deeper about the way Cold War thinking worked. Every problem was a problem to be solved right now. The next 20 years of consequences could be someone else's problem. Leave the waste, the ice will take care of it. Leave the missiles, the enemy won't find them. Leave the tunnels, they'll collapse on their own. The glacier was not a solution. It was a delay. Today, the Arctic is warming nearly 4 times faster than the global average. The ice sheet that was supposed to bury Camp Century forever is losing mass every year. The contamination field covers the area of 100 football fields. And there is still no cleanup plan. No international agreement, no funding, no timeline, just a problem underneath the ice, getting closer to the surface year by year. The Cold War ended in 1991. The decisions made during it are still being paid for. In a world where countries are now competing over Greenland's rare earth minerals, where the US is openly discussing acquiring the island, the legacy of Camp Century is a reminder. The Arctic has never been empty. It has always been a stage for decisions made by powerful nations who assumed the cold would keep their secrets. The cold is warming. The secrets are still down there, and they're getting closer to the surface every single year.